Have you ever been playing piano in one key when you see a dominant chord that looks like it's in another key? Well, those are called secondary dominants in that they're 5 or dominant of a key other than the tonic key. In today's quick tip, we're going to look at the most common secondary dominant chords, how they're used, some great examples of each, and how to use them in your own playing. You ready to learn how it's done? And let's begin. So you notice in that song we're in the key of C major, and so 5 in the key of C major is a G7, but we see a D7 in there, which is strange because D7 is 5 in the key of G major. This D7 is what's called a secondary dominant. So before we get into more secondary dominants, let's first begin with the definition of a dominant chord. So a dominant chord is the 5th scale degree of a major or a minor key. And it resolves to the tonic, also called the 1 chord. So we're going to look at how a dominant chord resolves to a 1 chord in both a major and a minor key. So let's look at C major. In the key of C major, the 5 chord is a G7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G7. And if we just look at the 7th and the 3rd, a G7, the 3rd, resolves to the tonic or the 1 chord. This is also called the leading tone, or if we're talking about solfege, that's T, Do. Notice also how the 7th of the G7 resolves to the 3rd of the C major chord. Now let's take the key of C minor. Notice how the 5 chord in C minor is also a G7, so that doesn't change. We still have the leading tone, which is the 3rd of G7, resolving to the tonic of C minor. But now notice how the 7th of G7 resolves, instead of the major 3rd like we did in C major, it's resolving to the minor 3rd for C minor. Next up, I'm going to show you what a secondary dominant is and 5 examples of the most common secondary dominants. If you're enjoying today's quick tip, please hit the like button, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more great content just like this. So a secondary dominant is dominant or 5 in a key other than the tonic key. And the most common one you see is what's called 5 of 5. So in the key of C major, if you see a D7, that is actually 5 in the key of G. G is 5 in the key of C. So we would call this 5 of 5. And there's a great example of this, for example, the song I played at the introduction, Tequila, where we have the bridge that goes, and we have this chord right here, a D7, again, going to the 5 chord in the key of C, which is a G7. So we have a D7 to a G7, and then back to C. Notice again, D7 is not in the key of C, is it? Normally in the key of C we would have a D minor 7, but when we have a D7, that gives us the hint that this is a secondary dominant of 5 of 5. Another common secondary dominant that you might see is what's called a 5 of 4. So again, if I'm in the key of C major and all of a sudden you see a C7, well, C7 is 5 in the key of F major. What is F major in the key of C? It's the 4 chord, so we would call this a 5 of 4. And there's a great example of this, many examples actually, but this one is really nice. This is the nearness of you. So we have, right here, we have C7 to F major. Again, 5 of 4. Another great common secondary dominant chord progression. And if you'd like to get the downloadable PDF from today's quick tip, please click on the link below. Another secondary dominant chord progression you will see is the 5 of 6. So again, for example, if we're in the key of C major and you see an E7, well, E7 normally is 5 in the key of what? A major or A minor. In this case, A minor. So 5 of 6. And there's some great examples of this. One of my favorites is the song Georgia. right away. We have the 1 chord. Here's our 5 of 6. Then we go to the 6th chord. One of my favorite secondary dominants is the 5 of 2. So again, in the key of C major, if we see an A7, well, A7 is usually 5 in the key of D major or D minor. In this case, D minor. What is D minor in relation to C major? It's the 2nd or the 2. So we would call this a 5 of 2. And this is a minor 2. Now, a great example of this is the song Crazy. Right? You know that song? So we have this, starts off with just C, right? Then we go down to A7. Again, 5 of the minor 2, and we resolve to the minor 2. Our last secondary dominant example is the 5 of 3. Now again, if I'm in the key of C major and I see a B7, well, B7 is usually 5 in the key of E major or E minor. In this case, an E minor. So we would call that a 5 of 3 minor. Now there's some great examples of that. One of my favorites is a song called The Best Thing for You, and it actually starts right away on the secondary dominant. So we have right away we have a 5 of 3 in the key of C major. So now that we've learned about secondary dominants, we're going to find out how to use them in a song. So we're going to take the song Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'm going to play it first without the secondary dominants, very simple, and then I'm going to put a bunch of secondary dominants in that to show you how you can reharmonize a very simple chord progression by adding secondary dominants. All right, so you all know this song. We learned it as kids, Mary Had a Little Lamb, without the secondary dominants. It just starts on the 1 chord, then to the 5 chord, back to the 1 chord, 1, to the 5, what happens if we add secondary dominants? For a deeper dive into secondary dominants, please check out the many courses we have over at pianowithjohnny.com. Now we're going to add secondary dominants. I'm going to show you how you can do this. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with our C chord, and I'm playing it up an octave as a C major 7. Now what I'm going to do is do this. E7 over B. Now E is 5 of 6. So we have, that's our first secondary dominant, 5 of 6. Now I'm going to walk down and do a 5 of 4 to the 3 chord. Now check this out, 5 of 2. There's our regular 5 chord, 1 to 5. All right, we're going to add some more secondary dominants here. We go back to our C major 7. But now we're going to play a 5 of minor 3, but instead of going to the minor 3, we're going to go to another 5 of minor 6 that becomes a 5 of the 2 chord that becomes the 5 of the 5 chord that finally resolves to the 1. Isn't that hip? Let's play the whole thing all the way through. Beautiful.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, please let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out pianowithjohnny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.